Ascent Podcast. My name is Brian, and I'll be your guide today as we dive deep into uncertainty and what that's all about and how it affects all of us in some way, at some point, at some time in our lives, having to navigate, make tough decisions, not knowing what the results are going to be. Sometimes that can feel paralyzing to us, make us feel stuck, make us feel like we don't have a way or a clear path forward. So that's what we're going to get into today. So let's jump into it. You know, it's interesting having this as a topic today, talking about uncertainty and, how to find your way forward when you feel uncertain about certain things. And as life would have it, I was expecting an additional guest this morning and got a call about half hour before going live here, and they can't make it. So talk about uncertainty, and those are the realities of life, and that's exactly what we're talking about today. Is I think as humans we want to feel like we have control. I think that's one thing that I'll talk about. So I always think of uncertainty as the opposite of control, or feeling like you're in control. As humans, that we want a guarantee. It's like you can go to the car dealership. What do you want? I want a guarantee. I want something to tell me that I'm making the right choice, and this thing's not going to break down on me, and it's going to last me for the next 10 years. And you want all of those things. And that is obviously the opposite of what uncertainty is, right? But that's the nature of certain things. So, Chris, from your perspective, when someone says, do you feel certain? Do you feel confident? Do you need certainty to make decisions? How about you share a little bit about your philosophies and your thoughts on that?
Well, in the perfect world, we're always going to have, there's certainty. In a perfect world, let's use that as the baseline to begin with. So, and I was trying to think about this last night, and I was drawing blanks all over the place, other than the fact that I with my new chapter that I'm in the midst of writing over this last 3 weeks, I have all of a sudden come face to face staring down the dreaded uncertain emotion of uncertainty. And it has been chasing me all over the place emotionally. And it has literally had me questioning my very existence. I recently embarked on a journey. We'll call it a combination of things: some higher learning, some career pivot, getting a little deeper down the rabbit hole when it comes to leadership and self-improvement. Basically what I'm doing is had the good fortune, and I'll call it that's a good way to look at it to begin with, is that this is something good. Regardless of whether there's uncertainty involved, at the end of the day, there's something good that's at the heart of all of this. So I recently, as you know, Brian, got involved with a brand new tech learning center out on the west side of the island, which, first of all, is a 35-mile drive. Let me just say that every day. So anyway, the idea was we were taking some of the best and brightest of a couple of west side high schools, and we are literally getting them certified as electrical technicians. Well, in the process, we thought it'd probably be good if I got myself certified too, if I'm going to actually teach the subject matter. Makes sense, huh? We've been in tech for over 20 years. And I'm obviously the seat I sit in is more of a project manager / customer service / The more I got into this, the more I found out how complicated this industry is and how specific it is. And that's why they're looking for that's why they're constantly on the lookout for more people to actually work in this industry. And I'll be honest with you, this thing has been ripping me a new one. I got through the first module barely, ended up shining at the end. And I figured the first module had all the math stuff into it, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm a good math student, but this is some next level math that we're dealing with, right? I mean, next level. So I got through the first level, got my good feeling back. We open up the second module, and it is times 10. I mean, it's bananas. I mean, we're talking about from the acronyms to the buzz phrases, the whole 9 yards. And I feel like I've been barely treading water, and it has just really been working on my confidence, my general sense of self and well-being. And it has been a challenge I have had to have. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, I almost quit. Almost quit. But I'm not a quitter. So at the end of the day, this is something I have to figure out. And the reality is that some of this has to do with some of my limiting beliefs. We talked about that in the past. I touched on a little bit of something one of our previous subjects, the imposter syndrome. Am I an imposter trying to thrive in this situation? It has been challenging me every which way from sun up to sundown. And then you add in one more component. I started another class through the UA program to get my teaching credentials. Now that's a little bit less. It's just a lot of dry reading. But anyway, the bottom line is, though, I've now had to kind of split my brain and devote some time to the one situation while also devoting my time to my daily situation, which is the school. So needless to say, it has been a roller coaster of sorts. At the end of the day, I'm still very much committed to this, but there's some work to be done. Let's put it like that.
And I believe there's a lot of people in the audience who are hearing this and can in some way relate to this or apply it to whatever they may be going through or feeling in their own lives as well. So that's what we're going to focus in on today. And this is actually perfect. So we're going to break this out into 3 different areas as we talk this through today for our audience. First area is we're going to talk about how to aspire to clarity. So to get clear on what it is that you are truly trying to achieve or trying to accomplish. So we'll talk about that first and foremost, because that's the foundational piece. Then we're going to talk about sparking confidence, how to make sure that when you are making these decisions and you have to make these tougher decisions and move yourself forward, that you're doing it from a place of confidence. So we'll talk about that. And then the last thing is commit to your own growth, because through this, and as you work your way through, there is essentially this path of growth that you will be on, that you will have to try to stay on and maintain. So we want to talk about some of the foundational pieces of that and why that's important to be able to grow and stay on that path and move yourself forward. So those are the 3 primary areas we want to talk about. Chris, I want to add this to what you were just saying, because obviously you've added a lot to your plate in a very short term here, and it's got your head kind of spinning and just trying to figure out what's what. But that takes me right back to a couple of things I want to touch on. First one being awareness. And it sounds like to me, just based on your description, that what you thought and what it turned out to be were kind of 2 different things, right? But now you have this sense of awareness of really what you've gotten yourself into. Is that kind of accurate?
Very accurate. Very accurate. I honestly, not to interrupt you,
No.
I actually saw it as a little bit different than what it actually was. And maybe that's part of that's, well, I shouldn't say maybe, part of that's on me. But I also, sometimes the old adage is you don't know what you know until you know it. And this is a new program. I have to these are things that I have to continually remind myself, especially when I ratchet up the pressure and the anxiety, and which kind of breeds insecurity. It really kind of whacks away at your self-confidence. Things like that. I mean, and those, and to be honest with you, those are things that are, especially from a male perspective, those are things those are hard pills to chew on, but they're no less the pill that I need to chew on. But I got to be real about it. I got to be honest about it. Honesty pays in my book. You know, you have a lot of people, and I've got friends, and I think we all have friends out there. You make these admissions about how you're really feeling about something, and you know, and how inadequate you may be. And in my case, it's how inadequate I feel. But that's also sometimes it helps to turn the tide on the situation, is by admitting that you're vulnerable, that you're not functioning the way you believe you can function or should function in these situations. And I think that's a lot of people's downfalls in life, is that they get so and I'll kick in a couple of other words like, so be so prideful, you allow your pride to take over and your ego to get involved. And pretty soon, you start walling yourself off from the support and the help that you probably need. And right now I need all the support and all the help I can get to try to get to that point. Cause I'm just looking, I know that if I stay the course on this, if I keep putting in the work, that at a certain point in time, the light will come on. It may not beam at 150 watts, but the light will come on at a certain point. I'll start to create that muscle memory. And I know that things will, they'll start to move forward like I know they can be. And the other part of it for me is that what I have determined is during these periods of uncertainty, I have to lean on the things that I know I do well, because those components do play a part in what I'm doing, my day-to-day existence and my mission statement. So I've got to lean into that stuff as I try to, rebuild a foundation that seems to be kind of teetering at different points. There's no easy answer to this.
Oh, not at all. And that's perfect what you shared, especially the part about, and this goes back to what we were just saying about awareness, is we become aware that we are having these challenges, whether it's mentally, emotionally, etc., because of what is being pressed upon us. But the reaction that we normally have, like you said, is we become prideful. We let ego step up, and we want to puff out our chest and say, I can carry this, I can do this, versus the opposite thing, which is to say, hey, look, I'm under pressure. I'm not responding to this well. The reality, vulnerability side of it, to say any help you can give, any support that you can give me, trust me, I'll take it. But while we choose not to use those words and open ourselves up like that, I don't know. And for men especially, I think it really resonates with us in that way. So that's a key component to it when I talk about awareness, is being not only aware that the pressure is there, but also being open and aware that you may need to be vulnerable, open yourself up to garner some support from other places and other people in your life, because that will also help, I think, fortify you through the process. And I think that's an important piece to also look at. The other thing I want to add in there, once you are aware and crystal clear on being aware of where you are, why you are, where you are, where the pressure points are coming from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now we do what I like to call is cube it out or chunk it, right? So instead of trying to eat the whole elephant, right, let's break this elephant down into smaller cubes, smaller pieces, so that we can now manage them a lot better. And I think people sometimes are guilty of wanting to just, kill the elephant right off the top, right? And that's not realistic. You have to actually take the time to break it down. It's like eating a really nice steak, right? You can't just stick the whole steak, shove it in your face, right, and eat the thing at one time. What do? You take the steak knife and you cut it down into more manageable pieces. Same principle should apply here when we're talking about getting our head around all of these pressure points and things that are happening in our lives that we are uncertain about. Why are we uncertain? So ask those types of questions. What outcomes would I like to see out of this situation? And I think that's another piece of it. And I want to talk about that next, is that visualization, if you want to call it that, because we focus so much on the uncertainty piece and why are we uncertain, and the negativity around, well, this could happen or that could happen, or if I do this, open myself up to that. Well, we don't give equal time and equal justice to, well, if I open myself up to this wonderful thing could happen too, right? So that's the visualization piece that I want to talk about. So Chris, how about you share a little bit about that? Because I know that's been one of the things where you talk about there's good on the other side of this.
Well, I think what I have to do is see it not from today's perspective, but in time, I don't know how I would say this, timed increments. So what's this going to look like in 2 weeks? What's this going to look like in a month? What's this going to look like in 6 months? What's this going to look like in a year? Now, it's a double-edged sword, because what happens is sometimes you can get a little ahead of yourself and what I find for myself is I need to pull back. It's great to peak forward, but I think I had to shorten that runway a little bit, the runway of expectations. And that's probably been my biggest challenge and somewhat my saving grace right now is that I've had to adjust my own expectations, and consequently I'll be able to work with the people that I work with to adjust what their expectations may or may not be. So I've been having those discussions, and I actually made a decision this week because the clarity started to come back. I mean, if we were doing this podcast last week, I was completely hair on fire. I was deflated. I didn't feel good about myself as, what I was bringing to the table. I really felt a square peg round hole type mentality. And it took me a lot. I mean, I fought with myself. I fought myself a lot. And then of course, you keep, it's like wrestling an alligator. It's not a fight you're necessarily going to win. You'd be lucky to come out of it in one piece. But my reality was I had to readjust my expectations first within myself, and then I had to talk to the people that I work with about it and gauge how they felt about it. And basically what I was looking for was buy-in. I was looking for buy-in / support. And I came to the conclusion that I may not know this material because of the depths of this. And I can't, it's hard to really kind of give you a visual picture of how deep and how expansive this is. But just think electrical technician, electricity, power, current, voltage, amperes, all this different stuff, circuits in parallel, capacitors in parallel, resistors. It's just the list is longer than both of my arms put together, and I had my legs on too. So, but just understanding that this is the part of where you're kind of doing that mental dance in your head. Like, I'm doing this for the long haul. This isn't something that is just for 2 months or 3 months. I'm trying to literally turn this into an actual career moving forward that I have stated to myself personally that I'm hoping to get 10 years out of. That's the goal for me. And then I'm done. So with that being said, I had to go back and adjust that, it's kind of like going to the NBA and realizing you need to spend some time in the G League. I need to spend some time in the minors, working on repetitions, working on process, working on understanding this conceptually what it is I'm involved in. So that's been kind of something that is kind of really, I've been able to somewhat start to anchor myself again to. And by no means does that mean there's no pressure. By no means does that mean that I don't have, the clock isn't necessarily not running, because it is running, but just making it so that it has become manageable for me, because I felt like I was engulfed in flames for a while. And to a certain degree, I still am. But I have literally been reworking my attack plan to be something more manageable for me. Because if it's the old adage, if you can't save yourself, you can't save someone else. And, I've had some people reach out to me on a personal level looking for some help from me over the last couple of weeks. And the first time when I first got the call, I was like, wait a minute. Well, for one, that's not my job to save somebody. My job is I owe it to me first and foremost. But I had to just pull back, and then the power of no came into the equation, where I basically had to say, nope, I'd love to help you, but I cannot, based on everything. And I said, and the crazy part was that all this stuff we've discussed over the past has kind of come to play over these last couple of weeks. And it was like, it's just no. I'll give you a small cursory explanation as to why I can't help you, but I'm not going to sit here and burn through a bunch of my own currency and energy trying to explain it to you, because you came to me, I didn't come to you.
I think one of the key words you hit on that is being realistic, and whatever the expectation is, and even as you have your outcomes happen along the journey, being realistic about where you are in the process, where you have shortfalls and shortcomings, because we will all always have those things. Things will not always live up to the expectation that we've placed in our brain, right? That is going to be the nature of the beast, as you might say. So checking yourself, quote unquote, being realistic, I think is an important piece of it. That's all tied to the awareness piece, being realistic, and then, as I said, taking an opportunity to break things down into smaller, manageable pieces. So that way you can essentially consume them in a more manageable way so that you're not overwhelmed by it. You're not sitting there to, I can't chew all this at one time, right? Exactly, because you're trying to do too much. You're trying to eat too much at once. So the exact same principle applies. What I want to talk about now is, and you hit on this too, and it really is moving to the next thing. And that's talking about confidence, right? Because that is, as you were just saying, a week or so ago, if you had to sit here in this chair and have the same conversation. So you're probably at that point now, or you probably feel like you're beginning to turn a corner, right? There's a different level of confidence, etc., just based on where you are now, because you have started to sort some things out. You have been open and honest and been to, hey, look, this is a lot. I need some time. I need to compartmentalize. I need to do this, that, the other thing, right? So how has that started to help build your confidence and your vision as you move forward?
Well, I think a couple of things have happened. For one, I've slowed it down, in a certain respect, backed it up a little bit, and really tried to, like you said, attack it in smaller bites.
Yep.
There are the beautiful thing about where we are from a informational standpoint, from a technology standpoint. There's a lot of information out there on anything you desire. I mean, obviously, we're talking about professional stuff today. More important, I think a lot of people would, obviously, uncertainty bleeds into your personal life, but the reality is we're really kind of talking about what's going on in our professional worlds, because that affects you most. That affects how you live. That affects your bank balance. That affects a lot of things. They say money doesn't cure all, but it sure does make it a little more comfortable. Make it a little, if you got it, it makes it a little more easier for you. But really, like I said, a lot of, some of this is born out of my pride. Part of this is born out of the fact that I understand that in certain respects, I'm a smart guy. I may not be the smartest guy in the room, which is the other part of this that I have to keep in mind. I'm in room with some real, I'm in the room with electrical engineers. They spit this stuff out. You know what I mean? It's just like for breakfast. So trying to manage that part of it and not feel inadequate. I think that a lot of people get, when it comes to a confidence thing, it's how you make yourself feel. And you can do certain things to yourself that'll make yourself not feel like you should feel if you're as I say, when I'm my confident self. The difference. I was a little, to go into the personal side, I was a little disappointed in myself last weekend when we played golf. And because I had a lot on my mind, because I couldn't focus on the thing that was in front of me, which was golf. That was the one thing that I really wanted to focus on, but I had these other things buzzing around my head, and it made my experience a little bit mixed. And one of the things that it did tell me was more practice is required. You got to just keep practicing, and keep practicing. And sometimes it's going to translate immediately and visibly, and sometimes it's not. We all go through what we go through to get where we need to go. And like I said, I think part of it is you try to juggle too many things. I was trying to juggle too many things, and it just wasn't working out. And you have to go back and revisit those experiences. I had to come to the conclusion that I had allowed this thing to take me out of some of my routines and my habits. Like I wasn't I had missed a bunch of gym days because I thought if I studied, it'll be better for me. Well, no, yeah, I mean, studying a little bit more is probably great, but don't all of a sudden stop everything else you got going on in your everyday, because it all plays a part in your day-to-day existence and in the day-to-day successes that you're looking for. Everything you do. I'm a gym guy. I have to go to the gym. I may not be able to go to the gym for 2-hour workouts, but I should be able to get, schedule permitting, I should be able to get in there for a minimum of an hour and figure out how to make that work for me moving forward, how to make that be that thing that propels me forward. You work out, the endorphins get kicked up, everything's flowing and moving. And I got away from that. And I'd always said, I don't understand how people that work out stop working out all of a sudden. Well, they allow life to get in the way. They allow situations to get in the way. And I had to get back to, and part of that is me feeling guilty for some reason, like I'm not putting enough into this new craft. Reality is I'm putting in the time. I'm present with it. It's just not marrying with me at the pace and level and time frame that I had set from the onset. I did that.
Yeah, you did that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You do have to make incremental adjustments along the path. That's the main thing, because you make choices, we make decisions. We're driving towards a specific thing, and there are uncertainties that are going to happen as you go along that pathway that you have to recalibrate, right? And say, well, maybe I need to do this first. It's no different than sometimes you jump in the car and you're driving from point A to point B, and you jump on the freeway and the traffic is just stopped. And you say, well, I wanted to take this route. However, what I'm going to do now is exit the freeway, go this way and take this route instead. That wasn't something you had planned to do. That wasn't your intent. However, circumstance said this is probably going to be a better choice. It may not be a better choice. You might go that way, get there, and then there's construction, right? And the road's down to one lane, and you didn't know that, right? But that is what we talk about uncertainty, and these things happen, and you just have to real time recalibrate and remember the most important part is the target. Where it is you're actually trying to get to is what you need to get focused to, and try to remain focused to that is what's important. Not always easy.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, there's so many with this situation. I almost wish we had a reality show where I could follow me around with camera, my everyday, what I'm going through, because I don't think it's extremely hard to try to translate what I'm going through in real time. But I think the outside person, and I think because we operate in some of the same spaces, you get it. But to other folks that don't operate in spaces, like, what? You know what I mean? It's just subject matter. It's just something you just got to hunker down and, read a little more and stuff like that. No, I'm trying to learn it. I'm trying to facilitate it. I'm trying to mentor these folks that I've got, these 17 to 20-year-olds. I'm trying to be in their mind's eye. I'm trying to give them game on life, which is one of the things I thought when I first got into this that I would really be good at, is because I believe I come from some of the areas that they come from. And I believe that I experienced some of the things, some of the issues that they've experienced. I truly believe that. So I'm trying to give, there's a few things I'm trying to share in this space that we operate out of. And, it can be a little exhausting because sometimes I relive it. When I relive my youth, I relive some of the shortcomings and some of the things that I didn't get that I want to give to these young people that are in my charge. So there's a lot of layers to this to be navigated.
There definitely is a lot of layers. And on top of that, making these decisions with confidence is always where the choice is, because human nature says, and you have to remember, your brain has obviously running your body and all of that, but from a keeping you safe is its primary thought process and function. That's what it does. It wants to keep you safe, right? So you have to actually fight back, and in some ways against yourself, because your brain is always going to go, let's not do that. Well, let's not do that. Well, what about this? It's going to throw all of these things in front of you that could be potentially harmful to you, because that's the way it's configured and programmed and set up. So you have to kind of work against that programming a lot. So what happens for a lot of people is, because of that, we become still, is the term I'll use. We don't move, we don't progress, we won't get outside of the box, because I am safe right now. I'm in this place of safety, and so if I don't move, everything's going to be okay. However, in that space, you also can't grow, you can't evolve, you can't experience new things, try different things, and on and on and on and on and on and on. So that's where I want to get to next. But as we do that, Chris, I want to go back to two things that you brought up. One was when you were talking about golf, right? And especially specifically last week, and it really had you frustrated and some other things. And that's as we say, we talk about that a lot. Golf is kind of life, right? It mirrors that a lot. You get one swing, one shot, the ball lands where it lands, and wherever it landed, you have to play it from there. And life is the same. You make a decision, you get a result based on that decision, and now you've got to navigate from that result to the next thing, whatever club you want to use for that next step that you take. Golf is exactly that, right? But I think what we'll all discover as if you do play golf or you play any type of game, you're going to have your strengths and some areas that you need to improve. You're either going to be really good at driving, and maybe your mid-range game is sucky, and your sand wedges and all that are really good. So awareness, identifying and understanding your strengths, and also your areas of opportunity to improve, what they are. And as you're out there making these moves, use your strengths to your advantage. Focus there. Put your energy, your effort when you're out there on the areas that you're strong in. The areas of opportunity, you still got to use that in the game, because that's the nature of the beast. But that's where you practice, right? When you're away from the course, you practice on putting, or you practice on your chip shots, et cetera, because if that's your weakness, your area of opportunity, that's where you need to focus. And I think that same principle applies in life in general. Know your strengths, identify what those are, and focus in on those as you do the activities that you have to do day by day. But the things that you've identified you need help, you need to grow in, that's where you take the time to practice. I want to add one more thing to that too, because you talked about a little bit in there about your routines, and one of them was going to the gym, right? And so here's a tip. I know a lot of us use calendars, and calendars can be helpful. But what I even like to say, the next step of that is, if you do use a calendar, use reminders. And so create it as a task, use a reminder. And then the beauty of a lot of our calendars today is they allow us to use colors, right? When you put different things on the calendar. So I like to say, create those things that are red: gym, swimming, or dinner with the family every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, things like that are just concrete things. Put them on the calendar in red, right? And then say, no matter what else happens, if it conflicts with a red thing, then, as you had to say earlier about someone asking you to help, I can't do it then. I can do it here. I'm not saying I can't do it, but I can't do it there, because those things that are red are the things that keep you standing up straight, keep you focused, and those are your quote unquote priorities. So if you do use a calendar, create those tasks like that and put them in a color to say that the moment you look at it, you know, can't do it there because that's my gym time, that's my swim time, that's my family time, whatever it might be, because those are the things that I think you really need to prioritize, because it does keep you on the straight and narrow. That said, then I want to transition to talking about growth and, being committed to your own growth and why that's important, especially when opportunity presents itself, and it might be leading you down a path as Chris is on right now, a journey that the opportunity is great. It's an outstanding opportunity, but the pathway has been quite mind-numbing and challenging in a lot of different ways. But that in itself is a description of growth. Would you not agree with that, Chris? Do you feel like, I mean, it's only been what, 2 months, maybe? Has it been that long?
2 months.
Roughly 2 months?
Yeah.
So do the Chris that's sitting here today, is this the same Chris that would be sitting here 2 months ago?
No. Whew, how do I say this? Definitely being challenged. But I think we, through our conversations that we have off camera and whatnot, you knew I was looking for a challenge. More or less indirectly, I sought this out. And I have to remind myself of that too, that I sought this out. There's a phrase we have sometimes that comfort zones are where dreams go to die, right? One of my mantras is, I'm trying to leave it better than I found it. So we're at this age where the stakes are a little bit different for us. Yes, I am seeking out comfort. Yes, I'm seeking out stability. Everybody should in their lifespan, seeking out those two things. But I also realized that I've had to be realistic with myself to understand that the journey was going to have some bumps along the way. And if I'm going to get where I say I want to go, then I have to be committed to growing. I think we're all on our circle is on a path of growth. We're figuring out what it takes to recommit to growth. I don't think it's a question of whether we were committed to growth. I think we've always been committed to growth, but I think you get in different parts of the journey, and you've got to recommit, you've got to readjust, you've got to reevaluate all of it. And we don't have the luxury of doing just the one thing. You've got to simultaneously work on, I mentioned 3 things. If I kept talking, I probably could come up with another 3 things at least that need to be worked on in this process as a part of this puzzle, as a part of this overarching goal and desire. My desires are very strong. I want to be, we're talking legacy now. We're talking about money because I want to get my money. So let's be clear on that. For those out there, like, well, what about the money? Yeah, I am about my money. That is one of the motivators for this growth. But the reality is, this is going to be how I'm looking at it. Is we got through July, I think, for this first cohort. So I'm starting to reassess those goals, and I'll be looking at it again next week. So it's going to be a week in and week out type situation. And the thing I'm going to do is going to help me out a lot with my anxiety is to work with myself and have the conversations with myself, but also the people that are in my group, discussing what I'm seeing versus what they're seeing, and how do we attack it together? You know what I mean? What's the best way that we can support each other to get to the levels that we're trying to get to? Because I really believe, even though right now I'm wavering at different points in time, that ultimately this is going to work out, and this is going to be a really, really good thing. And the crazy part about it is, I don't see the ceiling. I think this is a ceiling beyond my ability to see. So keeping that in mind, don't call it one thing when it can be something else. So there's a lot on the line. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot on the line, and it does engulf me at times, and it's probably going to engulf me more at different points in time moving forward. But the fact of the matter is, I got to get back to, excuse me, I have to get back to staying committed to the growth. If I stay committed to the growth, everybody wins. And obviously myself, I win too.
As James Clear talks about in the book Atomic Habits, the 1% increments, right,
Mm-hmm.
for growth and improvement. That's the thing to focus on. It's not like you improve from here to here overnight. It's those small incremental improvements that make all of the difference in the world. And that's the thing you want to focus on. The other piece of that is taking the risk, right? Stepping out into the unknown is the key piece of growth and self-awareness, just self-learning about who you are, what you're truly capable of. When you think about folks who decided to be astronauts, for example, we can talk all day long about we're going to put you in this chamber, we're going to suck all the air out, blah, blah, blah. It's going to feel like you're in space and this, that, and the other thing. We're going to fly you in jets and turn you and burn you and do all these different things here on Earth in these quote unquote controlled environments. But still, at some point, they have to get in this rocket and be launched into space, into something that is totally unknown and uncertain to them, right?
Right.
Because we try to replicate as best we can, but there's nothing like the actual, right, going into space. So just the mindset that they have to have, the courage that they have to have, the belief, not only in themselves, but the equipment that they have, that this is going to protect me and this is going to work. And the other thing that they train them on all the time is things are going to go wrong. I mean, it's like they have a list of mission parameters, and number one on the list is shit's gonna happen and go wrong. It's not like it's gonna be safe, it's gonna be fine. It's not. They put it at the very top to let them know that your number one job is to adjust and fix things as they go wrong, because they are going to go wrong, right? So just knowing that in your mindset. So it's an interesting thought and process, but that's what we all need to try to strive to get to, because those adventures that are out there for us, the new experiences that allow us to continue to grow, evolve, become better versions of ourselves because of that. And then as what, Chris, kind of what you're working on now is also putting yourself in a position to call it pay it forward or be supportive and give back to the community. I think it puts you in those places as well when you have the opportunity to truly expand yourself and see what you're truly capable of. I think that really makes a big difference.
Well, one of the things I have to I have to continually remind myself is I'm trying to go into rare air. Believe me, I could go get with my experience level, I've run companies, the whole night, I could go get a job. I could. I really could. But I really strive to get it to be into rare air, to do something a little bit different. And here's the part I was taught, I come from a lineage of a few famous folks who remain nameless at this point. But I was reminded from a couple family members that part of what I'm doing is actually in my DNA. And the truth be told is, a couple of other conversations I've had, I'm also trying to figure out what I believe is going to be my teaching style. Trying to figure that out too as we go. What speaks to me? Because it's really about a lot of stuff when it comes to growth and what you're doing. How does it speak to you? You know what I mean? I'm not robotic. You know what I mean? I bleed just like I bleed like anybody. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to feed something, but how does that thing feed me? And I was reminded quickly that if I just stayed authentic, as I was also reminded, I got a story for everything. I have to, those are things that they go right over my head. I'm like, really? It's like, bro, you got a story for everything. If we sit you down and we put something out there, you can find a story in your head about something, either an experience you had, or you're able to actually decipher the situation and with that tell an antidote. He said, just do you. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, just trust me. If you think, he said, well, first he said, think about it. Just think about it. You got a story for everything. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I do got a story for pretty much everything. Some kind of story I can tell.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's the thing about the experiences of life, right? And having been in many places in life, which all goes back to taking risks. Because as we've talked about in on previous shows, the various industries and companies that we have worked for over the years, and going in the door, you didn't know much. You thought you knew what you might know, but how much you learned is key. But all of that is still within you. It is part of, as you said, you mentioned the word DNA. So it's part of your personal DNA from a career objective standpoint. So you can fall back and pull from a lot of that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That's a huge, huge benefit to have. But you would not have had those same things had you gone out, gotten one job, and stayed in that one safe place for 35 years, right? And again, I know it's a common thing that happens, but I personally think I get one vote, as I always say, that you are missing out on so much more that life has to offer by not attempting to do different things as you work your way through life. I think it's very important.
Attempt to stretch stretching yourself out.
Absolutely.
I have to I have to be reminded. So two things are really important for me moving forward. That I remind myself as much as I need to, that I am not going to be the expert in 3 months. There's just no way on God's green earth that I'm going to be the expert in 3 months. It's not going to happen. And that doesn't mean I'm setting the bar low. That means the exact opposite. That just means that what we talked about earlier, I'm being realistic about it. I'm supposed to take an industry that is so vast and deep and learn it all in 3 months. I need to be the initial goal is to be serviceable in the first 3. Once I get out of this, just to be serviceable. And then I know I'm just going to have to go back and keep hammering at it and keep hammering at it and keep hammering at it. And I'll get better. But the other thing that I've put into play into this is we have a program that hasn't been 100% defined yet. So there are going to be other areas that we can put into play that I'm a lot stronger at, that I can be a lot stronger quicker at. The whole point is that I have to to break this down is I'm a teacher. I'm aspiring to be a teacher / facilitator. I got to lean back on the point when we used to be, we worked at Sprint, we were, employee trainers, in that area.
I agree. You do have to lean back on all those experiences. Talk about too, when you talk about commitment, is if you're going to do it, just, as I hate to use the cliche term, but do it. I mean, as I say, just do it. Meaning, don't have to do it. Don't say, well, I want to try to do this. So you tinker with it. If you're going to swing, go for the fence, And I think from a growth standpoint, again, that's taking a risk, right? That's opening yourself up. That's being vulnerable. That's many different things. But how do you really know what you are capable of? Let's start there first and foremost. What you are capable of, and what the actual true potential of the opportunity is if all you do is just pick at it and pull a thread here or there, versus taking a full swing to really try to immerse yourself in it and become it and all of that piece and pieces and parts of it. And that's the piece that I want to really talk to people about from a growth standpoint. That's where the real learning comes from, is when you've actually had that immersion into it. And I know you can relate to that just based on being immersed in where you've been for the last couple of months. So I want to wrap this up. Chris, final thoughts from your chair, just based on uncertainty, getting out of your comfort zone, taking a risk, growth. What would be the last thing that you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Well, as I've been reminded a lot lately, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. That is one of our prevailing rally cries right now, is that we are, and this is specific, obviously. We're in a specific industry where there is a finite amount of people that can actually do this. A finite amount of people can actually function and thrive in this industry. And I am being blessed with the opportunity to be a part of it. And I think sometimes what you have to do is, when you're being challenged on any level, being able to sit back and put it all out on the table and figure out, first question is, do I want to be a part of whatever it is? Whether it be a personal relationship, professional relationship, whatever it may be. Do I want to be a part of it? If the answer is yes, then you got to be prepared for what comes along with it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, we in our minds, we want to pick and choose which pieces we want to go along with us on these journeys. You don't get that. You don't get that luxury. Okay. I have picked something that I believe will be ultimately very rewarding for me, but there is some bad that comes with the good. There is some downtime that comes along with this. There is some uncertainty that comes along with this. There are, which you hear me use the word a lot, there are challenges at every turn that come along with this. But if we're being true to ourselves and true to these situations, the challenges represent opportunities. And I think if you can start to, in anything you do in your life, if you view challenges as opportunities, you're going to always end up okay. You're always going. It's like that cat, right? You're going to end up on all fours, or you know what I mean. Even though you got airborne at some point, you're going to land on all fours and be okay. And I have to always use the history of my life when I, especially when I get in trouble, or at least what I feel I'm in trouble with. And my track record says I haven't always won, but I've always come out of it okay. And if you can understand that, if you can accept that, good things are always around the corner for you, because that's how you live your life. You know, I would have to remind people sometimes I'm a Taurus. And if you don't know anything about Tauruses, we're very optimistic. We're more optimistic than we are bullish. So I'm always about the good. And that's how I pretty much, you know me, you referenced me for more time than you care to admit. There is that crash. Mm. And for Tauruses, the crash is just violent. It's violent, it's ugly, it's bloody. And I've been going through a crash these last few weeks. And now I'm ready to get the car back on the road, right the ship, get things moving in the right direction. And what I'm telling myself is I want to try to find a little bit of success every day, just a little bit. Something to hang my hat on. Okay, we did that right today. So you start out with I did one or two things right today. And the whole goal is to keep replicating that every day, or as many days as you can, because every day is not going to be a great day. Some days I got to call timeout, throw the towel in, back up. I was telling my daughter that yesterday. I was like, honey, sometimes you just got to back up. Mm-hmm. You can't go into everything. You can't fight everything every day. I'm a fighter. You're a fighter. Most people have fight in them, but you cannot fight every day. And sometimes you just got to surrender.
Chris, I agree with you on that. So for me, I want to talk about, from a final thought standpoint, is control. And that's, the antithesis of uncertainty, right? Because uncertainty, unknown, control, you feel like I've got it under my thumb. Everything is under control. And that's what we want in life. But that's not how life works, right? It just doesn't. But there are certain parts or aspects within life as you go on your journey that you do have full control over. Your attitude, what's your attitude? That's 100% you. There's no outside, and sorry, people can say that there is, but no, you can still choose No matter what comes in, you get to choose how you react and respond to it. That is within your control. And that essentially is what attitude is, how you're responding to the outside environment. Now, I want to talk about Usain Bolt. Everybody's heard of him probably. He's a world famous track star and Olympian. And really wanted to just focus in on something that he talks about in a journey to his success and his growth. And because he kind of came out of nowhere when you really think about it. But here's what was going on behind the scenes. He knew what his mission was. He knew who he wanted to be. He saw that he had the capability and the capacities. But the most important thing he realized, he only controlled one aspect of all of it. And that was how hard he worked in preparation. So what a lot of people don't know is the 4 years leading up to his Olympics, where he came in and set new world records and all these different things, he trained for 4,000 hours of running and practicing and working out and this and that and the other thing to be able to run 9 seconds.
Right.
Right.
Crazy.
So think about that. So this is the thing that people need to bear in mind. All of the work that goes into getting you prepared to be able to achieve that result. Because when you reach the top of the mountain, it's like, oh, this is cool, right? So it's just fascinating to me how much effort he put in over such a long period of time. 4,000 hours spread out over about 4 years of being dedicated to doing nothing but getting better, working on his technique, coming out of the block faster, just all of these different things that made that difference, so that when he was there at the Olympics, 9 seconds and change, whatever it was, and the world was just blown away. And then he did a 200 meters and blew everybody away. And you're just like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? He didn't just spring up overnight. It took years and lots of dedication, focused on the thing that he controlled. And that was his work ethic, his belief in himself, and having the right attitude that, yes, I can do this. So that would be the last piece that I would like to leave people with when we talk about getting past uncertainty, because life is going to happen. Unknown is going to happen, but that doesn't mean you can't continue to move forward and push toward what you want to get to in life. And that's what we should strive for.
Well, I want to say this, and Chloe, I always do the 2 final thoughts. So
nothing wrong with that.
Can't help myself, man. I am who I am. All right. And I'm, you try to get comfortable in your own skin, and part of life is being able to accept certain variables, certain known facts. I think sometimes with each individual, I'm probably one of those people that admits that I'm all over the board sometimes. I don't respond well occasionally, and I live a lot of times in uncertainty. There are certain things that are on my board to do, things to do list that I still want to do that have not been accomplished. That some of those things I think I should have accomplished a while back. Now, I can't sit here and get hung up in it, because that's the kiss of death. But recognizing the fact, at least within myself, that this is part of my DNA, and that in certain respects, on certain days, I need to be okay with living in uncertainty. That doesn't, and it does not necessarily dictate the outcome.
Correct.
It does not. Because like I said earlier, if I'm doing the chronology of my history of my life, I've always come out of it okay. This is going to be no different. The difference is I'm hoping that I come out better than okay. That I leave something grand. For some reason, I was thinking about that the other day. I don't know if I was watching some TV show or something like that, and somebody's tombstone. I was like, what do I want on my headstone? You know what I mean? If I'm afforded a headstone. And like I said, I go back to, he left it. His goal was to leave it better than he found it. And I'm starting to pin that out in certain situations when I write things or when I talk to people and stuff like that, because I'm kind of using it as my rally cry. really making it, what do you call it? My why. We were talking about that. We were actually talking about that last week. And I said, I have to keep reminding myself periodically what my why is, because the water can get a little muddled and a little muddy, and you can lose focus pretty quickly. And I think a lot of people don't pay attention to that until it's gone sideways. I, fortunately for me, have built in somewhat of an autocorrect that it's kind of quick, when things, because things are either going good or they're going okay or they're just going bad. And you've got to react to either of the three. If it's going good, then you need to figure out why it's going good and try to bottle it up and keep it moving. And if it's just going okay, you got to take that blessing and say, okay, at the very least, it's going okay. And if it's going bad, then you got to reevaluate everything. I mean, at the end of the day, you just really have to. So a couple things that came out of last week for me is that I'm going to reevaluate some of the things I'm doing, or reevaluate my gym game. Maybe I'm going to use the calendar thing where I put my workouts on the calendar and really try to schedule them more into it instead of, shooting from the hip. I wake up every morning, decide how I am. And because there was a time in my life when I was automatic, 6 a.m. we're up, we're in the gym by 7. I think I need to I don't know if I can get there at 7, but I think I think I need to start really try to get this thing back on a clock.
So true, Chris. Thanks for sharing that. And again, so much knowledge and wisdom just based on life experience. And I appreciate you sharing and being open and being vulnerable and putting it out there, because I think it's important for people to see and hear and understand that we all face a lot of these same challenges, and uncertainty impacts us all. It's a common thread that we all have to deal with. So we just wanted to share some insight as to ways we felt you could better navigate and have better outcomes as you work your way through it and on your journey in life. So that said, I'm going to wrap up for today. Again, Chris, thank you. And for our audience out there, as I always say, take care and take care of each other. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye now.